Hello and welcome to another episode of Statford Bridge, Chelsea by the numbers. I didn't stream this weekend. Took the weekend off. Watched some sports. Watched some baseball, some football, all the non soccer sports. Went outside, touched grass, that sort of thing. And I thought about kind of the rest of Chelsea's season and what things are going to look like and what things I'm thinking about, what things I'm worried about, and what things I'm wondering about. And I decided a fun format for a podcast might be something like the 10 stats that are going to define the remainder of Chelsea's season. And Chelsea have only played 7 league matches. They're a little bit less than a quarter of the way through. Played 2 Champions League games, played a cup game. They haven't looked great so far. When they've had 11 players, they've looked all right. But there's a lot of question marks and a lot of things that could break one way or the other. And depending on how they break, will determine how the season goes. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about those 10 things. So the first thing to talk about is in relation to one Cole Jermaine Palmer. And the stat that is going to define perhaps most single-handedly how Chelsea's season goes is how much does Cole Palmer play the rest of the way? Cole Palmer is out with a groin problem. He's played 2.5 90s across all competitions so far. His most recent appearance was 20 minutes against United before he stepped away, or before he was substituted off with injury. He scores a goal against Bayern Munich. He scores a goal against Brentford. He has kind of looked off it physically since the Club World Cup. The rumors are he played in that tournament through injections. There's a clip of like him celebrating with Lavia, and he like winces when he steps funny. And groin problems are really, really hard to manage. We saw this with Enzo Fernandez under Maurizio Pochettino. He had a groin hernia. He had to have season-ending surgery. It is very, very difficult to recover from a groin problem kind of on the run. It just takes time. I tore my groin the last season of my college career. It takes a long, long, long time to recover from. And so the rumor is that Palmer will be out until at least the November international break, which would put it something like 6 weeks. And perhaps he's fine from that point on and goes back to playing a lot of minutes, which if you look in all competitions of the last 2 seasons, Palmer's played 40 90s, 3,600 minutes, all comps, the last 2 seasons. If he's only going to play 2,500 minutes this year, that's a lot of goals to make up. That's 6, 7, 8 goals that are just gone from your season because he doesn't play. And so I wonder, in general, how does the rest of Palmer's season look in general? And I mean, I guess we'll see on that front. And that's kind of my big number one stat is how much is Palmer going to play the rest of the way? I'm not a doctor. I am not a fortune teller, but I think how much he plays is going to be a big indicator of the rest of Chelsea's season. Stat number 2, which has now disconnected from the server on the Macro Football Shiny app. And what that stat is going to be how do Chelsea play when they are losing? This season, in the 75 minutes Chelsea have been losing the game, which is not that many, they have smushed teams on XG. Last season, that was not the case. Chelsea were very narrowly positive when they were losing games. That is probably not going to cut it. Chelsea last season had the benefit of playing comparatively few minutes from behind. given kind of where they were in the table. You look at the teams around them, and like Newcastle, 1,000 minutes, Bournemouth quite high. Like there's lots of worlds where Chelsea has to have to play from behind more frequently this season. And if Chelsea are going to be merely an even team when they are losing the game, it's just not going to cut it. However, Chelsea last season were very good at even strength. They were okay when they were winning. What they're going to be in losing game situations this year is going to be really indicative, I think, of how often they get back into those games and then what they look like in the big picture. I think a lot of this is driven by like how much they smushed West Ham. But that's a stat that I'm keeping an eye on is what do Chelsea look like chasing a game? The next stat that I think is very indicative of the rest of Chelsea's season is going to be shot volume. Just straight up total shots. How many shots a game do Chelsea take? Chelsea are a slightly above average team by shot volume this year. They were a quite high shot volume team, not super high, but high enough last year. A lot of this is driven by the red card noise early, all those sorts of things. But I think if Chelsea want to take a step towards Champions League consolidation, but maybe something more, I think they really need to move from being a 12, 13 shot a game team to 16, 17. And one of the things we saw with last year was like the shot volume ticked over through the season, but the shot quality dropped. And I think one of the really important things when you're doing that math is like 3 shots is more important than the extra 1% shot quality. That is true. But it's really important that to get to 17, you don't just have like Gittins popping off from terrible angles and from distance. So keeping an eye on that combination of shot volume and shot quality, which has declined considerably this season, mostly due to the red cards. But if this attack wants to be a title caliber attack, you probably need to get north of this on shots, and you definitely need to get north of this 0.1 non-penalty expected goals per shot in terms of shot quality. The next stat falls to one Joao Pedro, and one that I am keeping an eye on. Joao Pedro, in his 522 minutes in the Premier League this year, is averaging less than 1 shot per game, a big, like 5th percentile red number for strikers. If Joao Pedro is going to play a lot as a striker, the shot volume has to come up to like 2.5 or 3. And if it's just going to be sub 1.5 and the shot quality is going to be low, and yes, there's no Palmer, and yes, there's no Delap, and all of those sorts of things, Chelsea have no shot. There is no world where you can build a functional attack, and this is what your strikers output looks like. And I can take the add his 10 minutes into it, and we can do all sorts of things to make it look better. I can cut and dice it however I want. But the reality is Joao Pedro is a player who in his last 5 games has taken 1 shot. He has accumulated a rounded to 0 non-penalty expected goals in those 5 matches. That is simply not enough from the 9. Like, people want to complain about Jackson. It's not even on the same planet as Jackson. And I quite like Joao Pedro. I think he's a good player. I think he can play as a 9 sometimes in certain setups. I don't think he's a 9 all the time for this Chelsea team. And I think that's a really, 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 really tough sell to make this team's aspirations work with him. And yes, Delap will be back in November. Yes, Mark Guiu is knocking about. We will see. But I think that is one to absolutely keep an eye on, is like, is his shot volume, is his chance creation going to be enough? Because the answer resoundingly through 7 league games is absolutely not. Next stat, much more of a fun one. How much is Estevao going to play, and is he going to keep looking like this? because one of the ways you can make Joao Pedro as a 9 work is if all of a sudden Estevao is a 1xG plus XA per game player. 0.61 non-penalty expected goals, 0.35 expected assists per 96. He's taken 2.5 shots. He's creating a decent but not fantastic number of shots for others. He's going past people on the dribble. He is moving the ball into the box. He's defending like a madman. If you told me that Estevao was going to give me this for the whole season, I would say Chelsea have a legitimate shot of winning the league. Everything else has broken such that him turning out this way, Chelsea do not have a shot at winning the league. But this is bananas for an 18-year-old. Like, just the most ridiculous output. Again, 300 minutes. Do I want to get ahead of myself? No. Do I suspect if I come back and look at this in 4 months' time, it will look like this? Also, no. But do I think he can be 2/3 of this season? Maybe. It's kind of looking like the answer to that might be yes, because even as Chelsea have declined, his output still looks pretty good. He's still getting lots of shots in good locations. I quite like that Maresca's been conservative with his minutes, but I think when we are kind of projecting out over the length of the season, what is Estevao going to be? What is he going to give this Chelsea team? If he looks even anything like this, it totally changes the shape and the tenor of the season. So not really a specific stat because it's all of these stats, but how much does Estevao play and what's his output look like? Big through line for me the rest of the way. Next one up, Roberto Sanchez. And the stat is going to be errors leading to an opponent shot. Sanchez last season had 10. That was the most in the league. He finished as a slightly above average shot stopper at, I think he's like +2, which is totally fine. It's in the realm of you're probably average. Very active cross taker. Through the season, he's -1. More active cross taker. But most importantly for me, he has 0 errors leading to an opponent shot so far this season. That really, really, really matters to me. Yes, there's like, okay, you took the red card and blah, 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 blah. If Sanchez is going to be a reasonably steady hand, I think it raises the floor on this team quite a bit. I think it reduces the risk of a whole bunch of kind of downside moments that can happen. I think Sanchez has had a pretty reasonable season so far. He's definitely Chelsea's best goalkeeper on the books. That is one I am keeping an eye on, that if Sanchez is an about average shot stopper who doesn't make a bunch of errors and just claims loads of crosses, that's a good place to be. Do I feel like I am tempting fate? Absolutely. Do I hope I'm not? Also absolutely. Next one, Reese James minutes. James this season has already played as much as he did under Pochettino. He has played half as many league minutes as he did last season under Maresca. He pulled out of the England squad with an injury that Chelsea seemed to be not super concerned about. That feels like a strategic international withdrawal. Excuse me. And one of the things that I bring this up for is his like on-off numbers the last couple seasons are kind of down, but that's, again, very minor minutes totals. Throughout his career, Chelsea have been significantly better when he plays than when he doesn't play. And I personally am very excited to see James has been very good this year, in my opinion. And if he is going to have a season where instead of playing 400 minutes or 1,000 minutes or 1,200 minutes, he's going to be more like 2,000 minutes or 2,500 minutes in all competitions, or however that number breaks down. I am pretty curious to see what that impact looks like for the team, where if I think about kind of the difference between Reese James and Malo Gusto, I think over the course of a season, like that's probably a 3 or 4 goal difference in player quality. That goes a long way to covering the loss of Levi Colwill, or if you're not getting some striker production or whatever it is. And I think there's a lot of value um, in Reese James playing more, which is kind of a no-brainer. But that is one that I am very much keeping an eye on, like Cole Palmer, is how much is Reese James going to play the rest of the way? Because if he plays 25 League 90s, I think Chelsea are just simply a much, much, much better team. Next one. The next stat, you're going to look at this table on Mark R Stats or markstats.club and say Chelsea aren't in this table, Kieran. And that's because they're very close to the bottom. The stat we are looking at is called opponent dangerous possession lost. The opponent's unsuccessful passes, lost dribbles, or bad touches near their goal. Higher values indicate more effective pressing. That's kind of tucked away behind my camera. You look at the teams at the top. These are teams who are generating high quality turnovers from their opposition. Newcastle, it's all about their press this year. Arsenal, the best defensive team in the world. Bournemouth, excellent pressing team. Kind of a mess of other teams who are a little bit less good, but they're thereabouts. Chelsea find themselves all the way down at the bottom with Liverpool, one to keep an eye on, with Villa, one to keep an eye on, one Palace, who are defend a very different way. But Chelsea, for how much they press, they have one of the higher defensive lines in the league when you account for the fact that they've had lots of red cards. But Chelsea are not generating a tremendous amount of high quality turnovers for how much they press as a team. So for me, if Chelsea can be 23 high turnovers a game, 24 high turnovers a game, 25 high turnovers a game, yeah, that's kind of the spot that I want to be in defensively for how much Chelsea sell out to play the way they want to play. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm keeping an eye on, is how effective is Chelsea's press throughout the season. And when we think about the physical struggles that Chelsea have had so far, like this, I think is a really good bellwether. When Thomas Tuchel was the manager of Chelsea, one of the things that I felt very strongly was you could predict with a high degree of accuracy how good Chelsea were going to be on a given day by how good the counter press was in the first 10 minutes. When the counter press was really on and Chelsea had turnovers and it was like reaction, counter press, win, ball win, regain, transition, they looked unbelievable. And the days where it was like turnover, Conte's a step late, Jorginho's a step late, now it's a transition, Rudiger's in the channel, Chelsea looked terrible. I feel very strongly about this Chelsea team that they very frequently go where the press goes. When the press is good and they're getting their transitions and the possessions are starting reasonably higher, the team looks great. When they're starting the possessions deeper, they're not winning it as high, they're defending more of those pseudo transitions where their press gets played through and they get done. That's when the team starts to look very, very poor. And I think when we think about a lot of the games so far this season of Chelsea look great for 20 minutes, they look great for 30 minutes, they look great until they get their goal, and then they fall off, and then they die off, and then things slow down, and then it's been 30 minutes. It goes as the press goes, is where I think an important place for this team is. So that is a stat that I will be paying particularly close attention to the rest of the way, is how often Chelsea are regaining the ball high up the pitch. Stat number 9. It would not be a video of mine without talking about Alejandro Garnacho. And that stat is going to be Garnacho total shots. I think we have already seen that Garnacho is very, very useful as an off-ball mover, arriving at the back post. Chelsea's goal against Benfica is a diagonal run to the back post. We have seen the use of Garnacho cutbacks. But I think a really, really big determiner for this Chelsea team, and it's not just Garnacho, it's also Gittins, it's also Estevao, it's also Pedro Neto, is how many shots are these guys getting in good locations inside the penalty area. I don't care about all of this. I don't care, even a little bit. You look at the goals, there's 1, and there's 2, and there's 3. And that's it. That's the whole thing. There's 3 from outside the box in 3 seasons. I just don't care about any of it. Give me all the stuff in here I don't even mind this stuff because it's not so far away. And for the audio only listeners, I'm looking like left half space, 12 yards out. I don't even care about all this because it's close enough. Just give me all the stuff in the penalty area. And if Chelsea can generate shots for him and for Estevao and for Pedro Neto and for Jamie Gittins and Tyreek George, who scored a lovely goal today, in those spots, I think Chelsea are going to be all right. The last stat, and maybe the most important one, is Moises Caicedo is indestructible and plays 1 trillion minutes every season. He's played over 40 90s in all competitions 3 years in a row. He is always called up for the national team. If you included international minutes in this, I'm sure. So he's played 4,000 minutes or 3,600 40 90s the last 3 seasons. And then you've got 15, 5, 5, 5, 5. Like the guy just plays so many minutes every year and so many miles and so many yards. To me, seeing how much Caicedo plays this year will be a big indicator for Chelsea. He has already played 14 90s, and it is October 13th. He has, at minimum, 7 months the rest of the way. At minimum, 7 months. We could be looking at a season for him where he clears 4,000 minutes. Could be looking at a season where he clears 4,500 minutes. That would be Chelsea have had some deep cup runs and deep Champions League runs if that's the case. But it's entirely possible. And he's already got knocks. He's already looking a bit leggy. He's been fabulous, but it's definitely there. Keeping him fit and on the pitch is going to be tremendously, tremendously, tremendously important for Chelsea this season. So that is my last stat. We've got Cole Palmer minutes. We've got Joao Pedro shots. We've got Estevao production. We've got Chelsea shots. We've got Bob Sanchez errors. We have Reese James minutes. We have Caicedo minutes. And I've probably forgot Garnacho shots. We probably forgot some other ones in there. But those are my 10 stats to decide the Chelsea season. If you have others that you are curious about or you think are really important, let me know on Twitter or in the comments or whatever, and we can talk about it. Chelsea are back this weekend playing Nottingham Forest. Big game. Have to win, have to put points on the board. And hopefully there will be some bodies back from injury, but Chelsea are usually a little bit leggy after international breaks. Let's see how it goes. But as always, enjoy the soccer.